everybody and welcome back to Modern Dentures. In this video I'm going to show you how I do post dams. Now the reason I'm showing you this is because sometimes I want to specify to the laboratory exactly where my post dam is going and also how big I want the post dam, because different people have different tissue types. So some tissue is a lot softer than others, so if it's softer typically we want a deeper post dam, or if they've got a really bony palate, if we're doing it quite short, then we might make a really thin small post dam. These sorts of things the technician wouldn't know because they haven't got the patient there, as where we got them in the chair, we can literally just put our fingers in and you can just press around and feel and get an idea of how thick that palate is. And it's a little bit difficult to judge the depth that the post dam should be. Generally I always prefer to do the post dam a little bit deeper than you want it, because if it is too deep then you can always trim a little bit off. But if you do it a little bit too shallow, let's say the laboratory then uses a cold mild seal and they double it up so it's sort of quite thick, it might flood out the post dam and then the post dam doesn't come out very deep, and so it doesn't function properly. So it's much better to go over the top with it and have it a little bit deeper and then just trim it down to where you want it once you're fitting the denture. The other thing to think about is where the post dam's going. So sometimes a patient may have been wearing a denture for years and it's made an impression in the mouth and made a bit of a ridge. In those sort of situations, when I do the post dam, I'll just avoid that. Usually I'll go over to cover up that area, or sometimes I'll do it a little bit shorter. I make the decision about that depending on the case. We've actually got it with this one. You can see that the post dam is here, it comes back to here, and then it actually comes up in front somewhere here. There's like a little ridge that we're following around. It's really not a good place to have the post dam. Ideally we'd want the post dam coming up round the back here over this tuberosity, and that the denture, even if we don't put a tooth here, we want the acrylic here for support to come around the back of the tooth. Obviously this is a distortion, this is just an Elgin impression, this isn't the actual model that we're going to be making it on, I'm just using it as a demonstration. So in the mind that we're covering the tuberosities, you want the post dam here. The extent that you can go to is usually the fovea in the palate, which is somewhere here. However, you don't need it to go all the way back here. What I would probably do with this one is just avoid all that area completely. Almost, their old one only went to there, which was a bit too short. So I'd probably do that. If I was worried that the patient was going to struggle with the denture because it is a lot bigger than what they're used to, I would put a second post dam in and bring it round like that. Generally when patients can't tolerate the post dam, it's usually this area, it's not this area. As long as these are nice and thin, you can usually get away with it. But for all intent and purposes on this one, I'm just going to do the one post dam. Oh, and by the way, if I put this post dam in, it's not as big and as deep as that one. But let me just show you how I do it quickly. So first I draw it on so I know exactly where it's going to be. And then I use a scalpel with a brand new blade. This isn't a brand new blade, I've just used it for another post dam, but it's almost new. So using a scalpel, it's a lot easier to follow the contour of that line that you've done. And as you can see, it's still skipping over the place. It's not going exactly where I want it. But it's a lot easier than if you're trying to scratch it in with a Lacron, and I'll show you on this line here, particularly when you get to these little bumps. So like there it didn't go where I wanted it to go, because it's blunt, it's thicker, it's much more difficult to do it where you want it without the tool making its own little way and messing everything up. So this is why I like to use a scalpel, because it's a lot more accurate. The thin blade just cuts into it nicely, puts the post down exactly where you want it. And this is, I'm just creating the guide for where I want the post down to be. Then I get my looker on, and I put the curve of the blade towards where the denture's going to go, as I just follow that groove that I've made. And by the way, when you're working in the lab, it's a good idea to get one of these. It's just a stainless steel placemat. You can get them on Amazon or something, especially if you're using wax and things. If it drips on here, you can easily just scrape it off, or if you've got lots of plaster that's building up, you can easily just pick it up, put it in the bin. But this can be boiled off and kept clean. And we're chamfering it down to the line on the denture side, so that the post stem isn't just a trench, it sort of curves into the palette. And this side is a sharp edge, so when we wax up to that edge, it's a definite edge that makes it easier then to trim the denture and get a nice smooth posterior border. I tend to do the post stems a little bit thicker in this area, just because that's softer tissue, so it can press into those areas a little bit more. But remember, when you're fitting the denture, you can always reduce the thickness of this post stem. So if there's any technicians watching and think that I've gone overboard with that, it's okay. It's easier to reduce it down. And if you are a technician and you're doing this for your clinician, just make a note and say that the post stem may need adjusting. And that's it. That's how I do my post stems. You get a nice, clean, definite line, which makes it easy of where the dentures go in. The posterior extensions of the denture. And I'll just quickly do this second post stem. I tend not to meet up with this one completely, but I'll just bring it in. Something like that. Some people shape these, they have like a little bit that comes around here, which can look quite nice, but it's not actually necessary. And then if I was taking this one out, as I said, I wouldn't do it as deep as the other one. I'll just scratch it in, and turn my blade round, and again I'll just chamfer it in. And the reason I don't do this one as deep is because that will actually go in, when the denture's finished, that bit will be in there. And you almost certainly need to reduce that and take that bit off. I've checked it with the patient and seen how they get on. If we put this in and they'll start gagging because it's gone back too far, then I can just trim all this out and leave this post stem in, and then the denture will still have that retention, and we're still going up over the tuberosities as well. There we go. Hope you found that useful. And as I say, I don't do this on every case, but in certain situations I know exactly where I want the post stem to go, and rather try and explain that to a technician, it doesn't take very long, a couple of minutes for me just to get my scalpel out and scratch it in exactly where I want it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and all that stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.